Backing into one as well. Moving on, Holiday, trying to pull the chair, get out of the way. Wembanyama to the deck. Foul on Holiday.
And I think he did pull the chair too.
Victor Wembanyama.
Can't hit. Wembanyama, his 13th rebound.
The 22-year-old generational talent, the man who was supposed to carry the San Antonio Spurs to a championship for the next decade.
Focus, got his legs underneath him. Nice, powerful jumper.
Mitchell and Wembanyama, the Grim Reaper.
May have just had his entire NBA career put in jeopardy after hitting his head so hard last night that he was rushed off the court and straight to the hospital in the middle of a playoff game. I know what you're thinking. It's just a concussion. Players recover from those all the time. But here's what most people are completely missing about this situation. This is not just a minor bump. The medical protocol Wembanyama has now been placed in, combined with the severity of how he fell, has people inside the league genuinely terrified about what this means, not just for Game 3, but for the rest of his career. If you've been following Wembanyama at all this season, you already know the stakes here are impossibly high. And what I'm about to break down for you changes everything we thought we knew going into this playoff series. Stay with me, because this story goes much deeper than a hard fall on the hardwood. Last night, Tuesday, April 21st, 2026, in Game 2 of the San Antonio Spurs' first-round Western Conference playoff series against the Portland Trail Blazers, Victor Wembanyama was driving to the basket in the second quarter when he was fouled by Drew Holiday. What happened next silenced an entire arena. According to ESPN's reporting from the scene, Wembanyama tumbled face first to the floor and his jaw slammed directly into the hardwood. The 7'4" superstar lay on the court, visibly dazed, completely still, while his teammates huddled around him and the Frostbank Center crowd held its collective breath. The Wemby chants that filled that building moments earlier turned into pure, stunned silence. He stayed on the floor for several minutes. A timeout was called. Head athletic trainer Will Sevening rushed to his side, and then Wembanyama eventually stood up and ran straight through the tunnel toward the locker room. He never came back. He left the arena before the game even ended. The official diagnosis, confirmed by the team after the game, a concussion. Wembanyama has been entered into the NBA's concussion protocol, and here's where the alarm bells really start ringing. Per NBA guidelines, Wembanyama must now go through a minimum of 48 hours of complete inactivity before he can even begin the recovery benchmark. Then he has to pass multiple stages completely symptom-free. And only then, only after all of that, can a team doc working in consultation with the league-appointed protocol director clear him to return. That means there is a very real possibility that the best player on the San Antonio Spurs does not play in Game 3 or Game 4. And in a 7-game series, that is a death sentence. But to truly understand why this is so catastrophic, we need to talk about who Victor Wembanyama actually is and what he means to this franchise. Victor Wembanyama came into this season already being called the most gifted basketball player the world had ever seen. At just 22 years old, he averaged a career-high 25 points. 11.5 rebounds, 3.1 assists, 3.1 blocks, and a steal per game during the regular season. Let those numbers sink in for a second. Over 3 blocks per game, and he became the only player in the entire NBA to tally 1,500 plus points, 700 plus rebounds, 150 plus blocks, and 50 plus steals in a single season. That has never been done before. Not by Shaquille O'Neal, not by Kevin Garnett, not by anyone. And just one day before this injury, Wembanyama was officially named the NBA's Defensive Player of the Year, unanimously. The first player in league history to win that award unanimously. The same day, he was named an MVP finalist. The basketball world was literally in the middle of crowning this kid as the best player on the planet when the injury happened. Now, let's rewind to Game 1. Just 2 nights before the fall, Wembanyama put on one of the most stunning playoff debut performances in NBA history. He dropped 35 points, the most ever by a San Antonio Spur in a playoff debut, surpassing the great Tim Duncan. He shot 13 of 21 from the field and 5 of 6 from three-point range. He held Portland scoreless on 11 shot attempts when he was the contesting defender. The Spurs won 111-98, and Wembanyama looked completely unstoppable. This was supposed to be the beginning of something special. The Spurs hadn't been to the playoffs since 2019. The city of San Antonio was electric. The fans showed up in fiesta-themed playoff shirts. Tim Duncan and David Robinson were sitting in the stands watching their franchise's future take over. Everything was perfect. And then came Tuesday night, and the fall, and the silence. This is where it gets really complicated, because the Spurs without Wembanyama are a fundamentally different team. Yes, they have Devin Vassell, Yes, they have Stephon Castle, who is a rising star in this league. Yes, they have De'Aaron Fox adding veteran scoring, but without Wembanyama anchoring that defense, without his ability to contest shots without even leaving his feet, without that 7'4" frame altering every single possession, the Spurs lose their identity completely. We saw evidence of that in Game 2. With Wembanyama healthy and on the floor in the first half, the Spurs were building momentum. But once he left, Portland came alive. Scoot Henderson, who had 31 points on the night, shooting 11 of 17 from the field, took over completely. And the Blazers rallied from a 14-point fourth-quarter deficit to win 106-103. The Spurs went cold. They could not score a single field goal in the final 3 minutes and 37 seconds of the game. That is what life looks like without Wembanyama. And that was just one game. Now let's look at this from every angle, because there are several layers to this story that most people are not talking about. From the Spurs' perspective, this injury couldn't have come at a worse time or in a worse way. A concussion is not like a sprained ankle or a bruised rib. You cannot rush it. You cannot play through it. The NBA's concussion protocol exists specifically because of the long-term neurological damage that can result from returning too soon. And for a player like Wembanyama, whose game relies on extraordinary spatial awareness, split-second reaction time, and elite hand-eye coordination, even a mild concussion that lingers could affect his performance in ways that don't show up on a stat sheet until it's too late. Industry insiders are already raising the question of what repeated head impacts could mean for a player of Wembanyama's size. At 7'4", when he falls from a significant height. The force of impact is greater. The risk is real. From Portland's perspective, this changes the entire series. The Trail Blazers came into this matchup as heavy underdogs. Nobody gave them a chance against a healthy Wembanyama. But now, Scoot Henderson is playing the best basketball of his career. Deni Avdija had 30 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists in Game 1. And Portland has now proven that when Wemby is not on the floor, they can not only compete, they can win. Here's what most analysts are completely missing, though. This injury also raises serious questions about the long-term health of one of the most valuable players in the history of this sport. Wembanyama is not just important to the Spurs, he is important to the entire NBA. He is the face of the next generation. He sells tickets, he drives television ratings, he inspires kids around the world. The league has a massive financial and cultural stake in this young man staying healthy. And the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to say out loud is this: head injuries in professional athletes do not always follow a clean, predictable recovery path. Sometimes players come back and are never quite the same. The balance is slightly off. The reactions are a fraction slower. It's subtle, but at the highest level of competition, subtle is everything. So where does this all go from here? Let's map it out. In the immediate term, the Spurs face Game 3, potentially without their franchise cornerstone. Backup center Luke Kornet, who came in for Wembanyama last night and finished with 10 points and 9 rebounds, will be asked to do something that no backup center in this league is equipped to do: replace a unanimous Defensive Player of the Year. Kornet is a solid NBA player, but asking him to replicate what Wembanyama brings to that defense is like asking someone to replace a lighthouse with a candle. Coach Mitch Johnson will have to get creative. Expect more defensive switching. Expect a greater offensive burden falling on Vassell, Castle, and Fox. Expect Portland to attack the paint relentlessly now that the shot-blocking presence that held them scoreless on 11 attempts in Game 1 is no longer standing between them and the basket. In the short term, everything depends on how quickly Wembanyama clears the concussion protocol benchmarks. If he bounces back in 48 to 72 hours symptom-free, there is a chance he returns for Game 3 or Game 4. But if any symptoms linger, headaches, dizziness, light sensitivity, any of the common markers, the team and the league will not take any risks, nor should they. The stakes of getting this wrong are too high. And in the long term, this is the conversation that genuinely needs to happen. The NBA has to look at how it protects its most valuable players in playoff settings. Drew Holiday was called for a non-shooting foul on the play that injured Wembanyama, a non-shooting foul. That means the contact was deemed incidental enough that it did not warrant free throws, and yet the result was the league's best defensive player face-planting into the hardwood hard enough to suffer a concussion. Something about that math doesn't add up. For Spurs fans, the nightmare scenario is not losing this series. The nightmare scenario is Wembanyama coming back too soon, taking another hit, and suffering a second concussion before the first one has fully healed. Second impact syndrome is a documented medical phenomenon, and it can turn turn a manageable injury into a career-altering one. So here's where we stand. Victor Wembanyama, the unanimous Defensive Player of the Year, the MVP finalist, the most gifted 22-year-old the NBA has ever seen, is in concussion protocol after one of the scariest moments of this year's playoffs. The Spurs are now tied 1-1 against a Portland team that smells blood in the water, and the question hanging over all of it is not just whether Wembanyama comes back for Game 3. It's whether this injury has any lasting impact on the most important player in basketball. I want to know what you think. Drop your prediction in the comments right now. Does Wembanyama come back for Game 3, and do the Spurs still win this series without him? Subscribe so you don't miss the second this situation changes. We will have updates the moment anything new breaks on Wembanyama's condition. Stay locked in. This is just getting started.